Tonight we are speaking to the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of East African Community, as well as ASALs, and the Honorable Rebecca Miano joins us on set. There's so much to speak about, the El Niño rains, but most importantly, our ongoing series on the government's Scorecard 1 year on. Mheshimiwa Rebecca Miano, thank you very much for joining us, and welcome to KBC.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
It's good to have you.
Absolutely. So let's begin with the mandate of the Ministry of EAC and ASALs. What does it involve for the Kenyan watching this evening?
Yes, when we talk about the ministry, the full name of the ministry is the Ministry of East African Community, Arid and Semi-Arid Lands, and the Regional Development. And simply the longest title of a ministry currently. And when I talk about the mandate, I like referring to Executive Order Number 1, 2023, where His Excellency organized his government and gave me the mandate to be the Cabinet Secretary in that ministry. I have two state departments. The State Department for East Africa Community, charged with the policy issues for the East Africa community, implementation of the treaty, just being in charge of the relationship between Kenya and the 7 partner states. And in that regard, the East Africa community has 7 countries: Kenya, Uganda, we have Tanzania, Burundi, Rwanda, South Sudan, and DRC. So in that space, we take care of all issues: economic, people integration, relationship issues, and all opportunities that are available in that regard. And therefore, we represent the country in the East Africa community. We do have a multi-sectoral approach because we have various sectoral councils. We have agriculture, tourism, environment, education. Actually, all the ministries in the country, we have equivalent sectoral councils for those ministries. For the arid and semi-arid lands, we take care of the traditional 23 ASAL counties, but based on the drought that we experience, we have many other pockets of areas that are affected by drought that are not traditional ASALs. And therefore you find we have presence in about 29 counties. Of course, 80% of Kenya is arid and semi-arid lands. We find 70% of the livestock, 90% of wildlife is in the ASALs. All the resources of renewable energy are also in ASALs, deep culture, and many other things. So ASALs is quite a huge docket. And we are mandated to coordinate developmental issues, peace, security. We have food security, resilience, the whole array of issues that affect the ASALs. And again, just like the East Africa community, you find we have to work very closely with all the other ministries. You find water issues in ASALs, infrastructural issues, tourism issues, health issues, education, and basically all the ministries have to work closely, or we have to work closely with the ministries in matters ASALs. Then we have the regional development. Under regional development, we have 6 state corporations or regional development authorities, and these are based on the water basins in this country. We have TARDA, that is the Tana and Athi River Development Authority, KVDA, Kerio Valley Development Authority. We have Ewasongiro South Development Authority, Ewasongiro North, Coast Development Authority, and Lake Basin Development Authority. Again, you see we cover basically the whole country because those river basins are found across the whole country. Finally, we have the special programs. And special programs, this is a section or a directorate that responds to any humanitarian aid, be it relief food, non-food items. When you hear there is a fire or any disaster, we then go to the ground with the humanitarian ground. And so I can summarize by saying that our ministry is one of the widest, the deepest, the tallest, with the biggest reach in the country. And that basically is a summary of the mandate of my ministry.
Wow, what a description.
Yes.
Now let's get to the in-depth details of your delivery. And we'll talk about your scorecard in a bit. But the conversation that has been in the minds of Kenyans for the last 1 month since the weatherman announced the onset of El Niño rains in October. First of all, from where you sit, because I know you've been engaged with even the Deputy President in terms of preparedness for the El Niño rains.
Yes.
How prepared is the government of Kenya to deal with the El Niño rains?
As we talk about preparedness,
Yes.
let me take you back to where we are coming from.
Okay.
We have had 5 failed rain seasons, and that is from October 2020. So October to December 2020, the rain failed. 2021, the 2 seasons, that is March, April, May, and then October, November, December, the 2 seasons failed. Again in 2022, the 2 seasons failed. The relief we got a little bit is the better rains that we got March, April, May 2023. That means we experienced the worst drought in Kenya in 40 years. And just as we are recovering, trying to recover from the worst drought, there is then prediction and forecast of El Niño. El Niño that is expected from the month of October. And I have seen predictions that it could last all through to January 2024. It is predicted that there will be above normal rainfall and precipitation. And the effects of El Niño are clearly known. We will have effects on flooding. There will be flash floods, and that will affect many sectors. The water sector, you find you could have water that is contaminated, excessive water. That gives an impact on the health, waterborne diseases, and other diseases that are caused by rain and floods. If you look at the education sector, and especially because of the exam season, you could find maybe students will be affected. And when again you go to the security sector, you will find heavy rains and El Niños traditionally cause quite a bit of conflict, fighting for the resources of water, fighting for humanitarian resource. So there is also an impact on security. Tourism, you will find maybe the tourist sites will be affected, they may not be reachable. Look at infrastructure itself, the roads. We have seen some roads that are washed away, some are impassable. We have also seen, just in terms of human safety, we have seen landslides before in some areas, maybe of Moranga, West Pokot, and other parts of the country. And therefore, if you look at it, the impact, the shocks that come with El Niño are all well documented. And we have mapped all of them, including food security, including food that gets rotten, maybe post-harvest losses, and even loss in terms of harvest. And so we are clear as a government what the effects of El Niño will be. And we have had several meetings, and a lot of background work has been done in terms of preparedness. So we have all the hotspots in this country, not only for the Asals, but the whole country. And you find places like Marsabit, you find parts of Wajir, Garissa, you find places like Budalangi, the western part, the coastal part. So we have a map that has identified all the hotspots. Secondly, even at county level, we have county groups and committees that have been formed, chaired by the governors, co-chaired by the county commissioners, and all the leaders at county level, where they have also then gone a little granular onto the actual hotspots, even at ward level. They have held barazas, and I have seen even a checklist of what each county should do in case of El Nino. They have mapped out people who live in lowlands that are really prone to the flooding. And so a lot of preparatory work has been done. To consolidate that, last week on Thursday, that is 28th of September, the Deputy President convened as a multi-sectoral meeting, and we spent a whole morning just discussing the preparedness. We had presentations from government itself, national government, and I made some of the presentations. The COG, that is the Council of Governors, was represented, and many governors attended the meeting, and we got a presentation on how counties are prepared. We had a presentation from the Nairobi River Commission, also telling us some of the activities that are going on. We had of unclogging of drainage. We have a lot of preparedness. The Ministry of Health also came up and made a presentation on what is predicted to be the diseases and what the preparations are. So I can say all the sectors had presentations. But apart from the government, at the two levels, we had other players in that meeting, development partners. We had a presentation from the United Nations on what they have mapped and the support that they will be putting together for the El Nino. We also had Kenya Red Cross, we had the private sector, and so this was a very well coordinated stakeholder engagement. And so in terms of preparedness, I can say that just like a responsible government should do, the government has mapped out the preparedness. We have identified what kind of resources that are required in terms of food, non-food items, infrastructure. All that is mapped out. We do understand there is limited fiscal space, but we'll make best use of what resources are available. It is anticipated that the effect of El Nino will last between 2 to 5 months, and so we are looking at pre-El Nino, we are looking at the El Nino season and the response to any disaster, and also the recovery just after El Nino. And so there is a lot of dissemination. We have seen even in the news, even in the write-up, and I am very upbeat that this time round you can feel the activity and an awareness that there will be El Nino and there is need to prepare for it.
What is the overall cost of the preparations on the part of the national government?
On the part of national government, the various sectors have come together. In fact, they had a meeting yesterday, just yesterday, to scrub off the figures, rationalize. But what we presented before the final meeting was about 9.5 billion to start with. But those figures will change after the rationalization.
Okay.
Yes.
Whenever we have had disasters in the country, even when government says it is ready, much of a problem we've seen is coordination, particularly when that disaster happens. Learning from the past, Waziri, what is your ministry doing, of course alongside the other agencies, to ensure that when these rains come, there will be a coordinated response to it?
You're right. coordination is very important. If people are preparing things and they are not coordinated, many things fall in the cracks for lack of coordination. And that's why at the national level, there is that meeting or committee that is chaired by the deputy president. Then at ministerial level, the cabinet secretaries, each sector that is affected, we are having a conversation. We are also putting together a team of principal secretaries in the sectors that are affected. So they will also be then working together to coordinate. But more importantly, under the Ministry of Interior, we have the National Disaster Operations Center that is being set up at Harambee House, and they will have a dashboard and coordination backed up by technical teams so that they can send the messages, the signals, what is required, and coordinate all of us. And that trickles down, like I said, to the county levels, where we have county steering groups. And I think the coordination right now is working well. For my ministry, considering that we have a lot of counties in the ASALs, under the National Drought Management Authority that is within my ministry, NDMA is part of the county steering committees, is part of the technical committees, and is also part of the National Steering Committee. And I'm also a member of the National Committee and also the Ministerial Committee. Yes.
Was there concerns from Kenyans? And I think they were expressed yesterday by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, is about the prudent management of these resources we are getting towards dealing with this disaster. You're the minister in charge of ASALs, special programs, and all that. What is your assurance to Kenyans when it comes to the prudent use and management of the funds allocated to disaster management?
When funds are allocated, because that is still going on, we haven't gotten the allocation of the funds. When the funds are allocated and we have our plans, which we have worked on together with all the other sectors, we will demand accountability. We will follow the law in terms of procurement. Even if it is in terms of emergency, the law is very clear on what procedures should be followed during emergency. We will also inform or demand of the teams that are handling this that we want accountability and we want transparency. And remember, His Excellency the President himself has pronounced himself that he will not tolerate any corruption. And I think it will even be worse when you get corruption in terms of a in times of a disaster. So I want to assure Kenyans that whatever we will handle in my ministry and even as a government, it is very, very clear.
The paradox of this country, Waziri, is that when a drought comes, it is sort of a curse, particularly for ASAL areas. Yes. When the rains come, it is still yet another curse for ASAL areas. What is the government doing to leverage on these rains when they come to ensure we have some semblance of, storage, or even ensuring that after the rains, we can have some sense of food security in the ASAL areas?
The effects of climate change are so clear, they are so dire, that they've put our country, and especially the ASALs, in a pendulum. Drought, floods. And therefore, because of that effect of climate change, the negative effect, the vagaries of weather, it is upon the government, and especially our ministry in regard to the ASALs, to come up with policies, to come up with programs, to come up with projects and an enabling environment so that we move from crisis management because of that pendulum to making our country more resilient, to making our country more prepared, and more sustainable. And that's why you have seen in the plan, in the government plan, the Kenya Kwanza plan, there is a plan to harness the water through the water pans and dams, and that is going on very well under the Ministry of Water, because ourselves, their biggest problem is water, just scarcity of water. And so we're working towards good water governance, and that is, it starts with all the way from harnessing the water, harvesting it, the usage for the benefit of the people, not only just for domestic use, but for irrigation, for agriculture, for livestock, and all the economic activities that come with water. Remember, water is so critical, it even affects longevity and life of people, the opportunities for education, opportunities for economic development, and the whole health. And that is why there is a very big plan and a firm plan on water resources. I believe when we have built enough water reservoirs, that is the ponds and the dams, that will help alleviate this pendulum sort of a problem.
Overall, when you look at ourselves, the general government plan, because food security is among the key pillars the president has spoken about, and there's interventions that the government has done to ensure there's food security. But you would agree with me that some of the conditions in some of these food basket areas are not the same with the ASAL areas. What is the overall government plan, or that silver bullet that will ensure there is food security in ASAL counties?
ASAL counties, and I'll tell you, I have visited the ASAL counties. I will confirm to you that the land is arable, the soils are fertile, we have good chunks of land, and the way I look at it is that actually the ASALs are the next frontier in this country in terms of even food security. Because the original food baskets of this country have a lot of human settlement, a lot of subdivision of land, and you will hardly find large-scale farming. The only difference is that the original and traditional food baskets have enough water, rain-fed water. But for the ASALs, you have the land, it is arable, it is huge enough, fertile, but no water. The magic bullet, the golden ticket for the ASALs is provision of water. If we get the mega dams and we provide water for the ASALs, and then shift from rain-fed agriculture to irrigation, that will be a silver bullet that will have food security and will make the ASALs more productive. And when they are productive in terms of food, you will then have economic opportunities.
Before we talk about the overall scorecard of your ministry, and I'm still on the magic bullet, because every time there's drought, and this is, like you said, this is the worst we've had in 40 years, the government always encourages, a livestock off-take program to cushion the pastoralists whenever drought bites. But there's another conversation, and you will tell me whether you're encouraging it from where you sit, the shift from livestock farming to agriculture in the sense of crop production. Is that something you're pursuing from your ministry?
Yes. When you talk of livestock, and when you have a drought, it's basically that you don't have cattle feed or livestock feed and the fodder, and you do not have the water. So first you sort out the water problem. Then you grow enough fodder. If you have enough fodder, you can silage it and store it, and the livestock will not lack the feed even during dry times. So that is one of the things we are working on, and we have a project to see how we can do fodder commercialization, how we can grow more fodder, so that you even out that pendulum that during drought you're losing livestock, you don't have any feed. So that is in the long run. We would also maybe work on practices where livestock is then sold at the right time. You know, it's just like football. You know, when your players are still productive, when they can still be in the field, rather than, and after a certain stage, those players stop being agile, energetic, productive. So the same for livestock. If there is a mind shift to make livestock a source of economic development, then all this will fall into place. When should you then sell your livestock? Because it's a commercial business. Beyond that age, it is then just consuming without more productivity. So that is some of the policies and mind shifts that we'll be working on. And again, like you said, we shift from just entirely 100% reliance on livestock to other opportunities in agriculture, in mining, in growing alternative crops, and in many other activities that will complement and supplement the livestock-based economic activities in the ASALs. And I have done a lot of reading, a lot of research, comparing our ASALs with some other jurisdictions. I've even looked at the side at the case study of countries like China. And China also have an arid and semi-arid land. And I have seen some of the things they have done to sort out the environmental degradation, deforestation, and also enhance economic activity and eradicate poverty in those areas. They encourage even the growing of shrubs and even very valuable herbs that are then used for medicinal value, and at the same time you are protecting the environment. And we want to do some feasibility studies, because our ASALs, if you read and you see on record and in documents, they are so well endowed, even with medicinal plants, with shrubs. And why can't we grow them, scale them up, and get those ingredients and export them? And if you look at even just the cost of some of these initiatives, you find, I was reading somewhere that a kilo of some of those herbs retails at around 3,000, a kilo of herbs, and it will be this size, compared to some of the other agricultural products like maize. You find a whole 90 kg bag goes for about the same price. So the ASALs, if we get the right research and the right policies, encourage our people to participate, I think they will be very productive and the next frontier. So it suffices to tell you that we are also coming up with research, innovative and transformational ideas that are in the pipeline, and I think when we are done, we'll be rolling them out for stakeholder engagement with the county governments and even with the local communities.
Let's just talk about the scorecard, because the Kenya Kwanza administration is 1 year in office. Under your ministry, what do you think you've been able to deliver in the last month?
Yes, we are just about to get to the 1 year anniversary, because I was sworn in office on 27th of October 2022. Last year, like now, I was busy preparing for vetting in Parliament, but I had not been sworn in. After being sworn in, let me start with what we have done As I'll start with the East Africa community docket. And of course, we have aligned ourselves to the bottom-up transformation agenda in undertaking our mandate. And so I will start with what we have, basically, just the highlights, not everything, the bigger rocks that I can talk of in the East Africa community. I am glad about the achievements that we have achieved in the MSME space. And while in office, we organized about 300 Juakali traders to participate in a Juakali exhibition in Uganda, and that is a regional exhibition. What that did is that there was benchmarking by our Juakali entrepreneurs. They also got contacts. Some of them got contracts. And so there's the opportunity to also identify the opportunities that are there, cross-border opportunities. And that, I think, is a good achievement. Coupled with that, we are partnering with Trademark Africa to help especially the cross-border small traders, and particularly even the women traders, to put them into groups, and eventually they form cooperatives so that they can do their business at scale. They can learn the best practice. They can also just attract some financing. And so we want to have a simplified regime for the cross-border trading. I know we are working at Namanga and Loitoktok, and the small traders, especially women, are busy putting themselves into organized groups to graduate into cooperatives. So that is one. And number two, the issue of non-tariff barriers. We are resolving the tariff barriers, and some of the significant ones is just, for example, the Mercedes-Benz that is assembled in Kenya and the Hino trucks. There were some trade barriers which we have been able to bilateral discussions in the region, and I am glad to report that now we can assemble the Mercedes-Benzes and the Hino trucks and export them in the region. And other non-trade barriers that we have unlocked. You remember we have the Kenya juices, we have things to do with milk. So, and unlocking those, I think, is one of our achievements. We still have some work to do. We know that especially as Kenya Association of Manufacturers and other traders that have interest in East Africa, they present to us what their issues are and their challenges, and we take them up, and our State Department then starts working on that. So unlocking of some of the trade barriers, non-tariff trade barriers, so that is another achievement. But also, in terms of trade, I remember we had a meeting or a conference with the EAC ambassadors here in Nairobi to discuss the Kenya-UK trade agreement, and we want to go into that agreement as a region. So and that was again led by Kenya, and also the Kenya-US trade ties. When Ambassador Tai was in the country, it was an initiative of Kenya to have the East Africa community meet together, the ministers of trade and the ministers of EAC, to discuss with the US trade, so that at the end of it, we are then getting into agreements as a bloc rather than individual countries. So those discussions have been quite significant, and we are taking a lead. We have also participated and organized several conferences to get best practice training and disseminate information across the region. We had a petroleum conference. Kenya is a major participant because we have quite a mature energy sector. After that, we had the US Human Capital, the World Bank Human Capital Summit, again in Tanzania, talking about capabilities, about HR issues, human capital. Again, Kenya was a big participant, even at the highest level of the presidency. And we are now working on a tourism conference that will be held here in Kenya. We had the Mara Day between Kenya and Tanzania, where we were talking about the Mara catchment that we share. And so I am happy that we are getting into those dialogues regionally. And I think just last week, we had the Health and Scientific Conference in Rwanda, because our aim is to be a hub for medical tourism. And we have common policies on health. Each country is hosting a different center of excellence. You may be aware that Kenya will be hosting the Center of Excellence for Kidney or urology and nephrology. We have, I think, Uganda cardiovascular, and Tanzania the diabetes. Rwanda will be hosting biomedical, and Burundi the whole issue of nutrition and health. So we want to create centers of excellence so that the East Africans do not have to travel far and wide overseas looking for medical treatment. And each country that is hosting the Center of Excellence is quite busy working on that. About 2 weeks ago, I did visit our Kidney Institute at Upper Hill at Kenyatta National Hospital. It's about 90% complete. And we look forward to launching that by end of year, by December. And Kenya will have fulfilled its part in creating these centers of excellence. If you look at the whole issue of climate change, you are aware that Kenya hosted the Climate Change Summit, and we had a position as East Africa Community. So we came together and participated in that. That's a good achievement. We are also putting together a common position for COP28 as EAC.
The Honorable Rebecca Miano, publicly known as a lawyer from the corporate world, Ken Jen MD, and now the Cabinet Secretary for EAC, ASALs and Regional Development. But what does Rebecca Miano do when she's not wearing the serious face of a Cabinet Secretary or a corporate leader?
You're right. I have many years, close to 30 years in corporate world. Corporate governance, strategic planning, and all those corporate HR systems, operations, excellence. That is my experience and my qualifications. But I want to tell you, that is the best skills that I could ever get to transition into serving my country at the highest level of Cabinet Secretary, because that is the highest position that supports the President in making decisions for this country. So the skills that I brought, I find them so relevant and valuable that I thank God for the journey He took me through, equipped me to get where I am. And therefore, I am determined to use those skills to serve this country, to support His Excellency, fulfill his oath to the people of Kenya, and to be his vision carriers. And so far, looking at the last 1 month, I cling to what I know best in this country, and I've done it with determination and excellence. Having said that, when I am not here in the office, when I'm not formal doing my work, I do many other things. I am a family person, so I am a mother, I am a wife. Those family things, I do them. I am a farmer. I am a dairy farmer. Livestock farmer, because I have dairy farming and also sheep farming. And so over the weekend, I will spend time to go check on that, connect with the animals. I also like community service, even through church. I am a member of a church, the Presbyterian Church, where I even serve in the church leadership. And that keeps my weekend well going. I also like interacting with the community, with the women groups. I belong to a book club where we read books together, and then we review the books, and we meet and discuss either online or in person. And so there is interesting around that. I'm also an alumni of the Nairobi University. But as a personal hobby, I knit. I like knitting. I knit sweaters. I knit scarves. Yeah, and so I'm also busy out there.
I was actually expecting you would say you play football or golf.
No, I don't play football. I don't play golf. Yes, but I enjoy those activities that I've talked to you about.
All right. The Honorable Cabinet Secretary for East African Community, ASALs and Regional Development, speaking to us generally about the scorecard of her ministry, but most importantly, the oncoming El Niño rains. Thank you very much, Waziri, for your time. We appreciate it very much. Asante
Thank
sana.
you.
All right.